Mr. Sanjay Kumar Das, once again, ladies and gentlemen, who's the Joint Secretary to IT&E at State Information and Security Officer for Government of West Bengal. May I request you, sir, to kindly join us on the stage, please.
Thank you so much.
You can write down your questions on the pamphlet that has been given, the notebook that has been given.
Thank you so much. I hope I would not disturb you much more that you are already waiting for your lunch. I hope my presentation or my talk must be very, very short, crisp, and to the point. So, before I jump into my presentation, I would just like to ask you to go through your, goodie that you have received. And in that, you will be having 2 books, rather 3 books you have. So, one is having the answers that you asked just before this. So, the tips that you want is already there on my left hand. And how to fight with crimes. The greatest answer is lying within this, cybercrime comic book. So, my dear friends, coming to the whole issue is, we always talk about data as fuel and all these things, Most important thing today is power. If you do not have power, you do not have oxygen. If you do not have power, you do not have, water also. So, if you do not have power, you do not have fuel. So, electricity is the most important necessity of today. So, if you disturb electricity, production, distribution, and access, you can take down IT. Very simple. So, my dear friends, coming to the whole thing is that electricity and all these very necessary things are called critical information infrastructure. So, we are sitting on critical information infrastructure, those who churn out tons of data every time and every moment, every second or millisecond. So, my topic today is a very simple one, which I would like to cue out from Mr. Sanjay Sahai, that democracy in data governance. He rightly pointed out that if you, quantify the entire data set of world today, that most of that data are actually owned or rather managed and powerfully controlled by GAFAM. Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, and Microsoft. These 5 companies are actually attending to every need of our that we actually remain in the day, from waking up to going to sleep. So, my presentation, can I have my presentation, please? Do you have the presentation? My presentation was already given. Yes. Do you want it? Okay, just give me a moment. No, I don't have a.
Check. All right. This moment makes me realize of this, I'm realizing this Bollywood dialogue that छोटे-छोटे बड़े-बड़े शहरों में छोटी-मोटी बातें होती रहती हैं, right? While we are trying to sort that out, there were few questions that we parked, and in case you want to ask those questions, you can raise your hand. I can walk up to you. All right, there's one question. Can we hand over the mic there? And sir, if you could mention the name of this, name the speaker who you want to redirect your question to.
My question was to Narayanan sir, but I guess he has left.
He has just stepped out.
Okay.
I can continue, it will come.
All right.
So, before I delve into my talk, there was some miscommunication, no problem. So, presentation will come. The very basic topic that I am talking about right now is democracy in data governance. First of all, we need to understand what data we are talking about. Right now, before coming into this session, we have written our name and registered ourselves. So along with the name, we have shared some of our personal data. Some data we can readily share or it is already there. So my name, if somebody asks me, it is required to identify myself. And when somebody asks me about the organization, it is very easy to identify that person if we know the organization. Otherwise, you cannot come back and find that person. So specifically, along with the name, you require the name of the organization one belongs to. Even if somebody is a professional, that profession is required, or somebody belongs to an organization, that name of that organization is required. Fine. But when one starts having the details like email ID or the mobile number, they are called personal information. My dear friend, the personally identifiable information is one that has value. You know, when my daughter was in school, I used to actually, drop her a monthly check, that means the fees, into a bank. And when one day I saw, when I was just after I dropped the check, I was just waiting for a car to pick me up, and I suddenly found out the check that I dropped in the branch was picked up by somebody, and someone was actually writing the phone number that I gave there on the back of the check. And then I understood that how I started receiving calls for many loans and credit cards and offers. Yeah. So when that dawned upon me that this is the source of the data that I am easily sharing with, I went back to the bank and asked me, why are you asking for my mobile number? Because if my account does not have that money, you will definitely charge a cost because my check has been bounced. There was no need for that mobile number because no one would call you up. And already the school does have your number. Am I correct or wrong? Absolutely correct. So what did the necessity of my name and phone number on the back of the check? Because that is being sold by the bank. The bank does not sell the front face of the check. It actually sells the back page of the check. So immediately you have an enlistment of name and phone number from which people can start actually calling you up and start offering you some things. So without knowing, we are sharing our data and our life to be violated. So this is called personally identifiable information. But if we go, before I delve into it, I would like to tell you that right now, the maximum attention span of an adult, because many of you are already talking amongst yourselves, because you have lost attention to what is being told here. So the maximum attention, that one person has, an adult person has, is 20 minutes. So I would keep my talk within 20 minutes. So don't worry. That is why I put it as a fact of my presentation. Second is some data I should give you. In 2021, 86.63 million Indian users were breached. It is not me who is talking. And India right now ranked third in the world in number of data breaches. Do not ask me who is the first and second. One can easily guess. And in August 16, ETCISO reported that personal data transaction details of 37,000 Indians were leaked online. So what were those personal information? My dear friend, if you just put your voice down, my dear friend, sir, thoda sa volume kam kare. So, personal data, transactional details of 37,000 came out in the open. These are PII and most specifically SPII. So what is SPII? SPII is sensitive personally identifiable information. Very recently, when I had COVID for the third time, Don't worry, I am firstly becoming the COVID-free in the country. So when I had COVID for the third time, my friends, like one of the friends sitting here, my friends started telling me, this is high time you started going to doctors. You know, I don't go to doctors, take medicines because I am feeling always okay. So when I went to doctor, and we are educated people. So before going to doctors, I got advice from all my friends, and they told me you take lot number of tests before you go to the doctors, because doctors would definitely send you to some place and you have to take those tests. So it is better to take those tests and go to the doctor so that in one shot you receive all the answers. Like that is called remediation. So vulnerability has been identified, problem statement has been created, and it is time for remediation. Root cause analysis is necessary based upon which remediation will be done. So I went to the doctor for RCA. The doctor conducted an RCA and the report was a page long. When I came out with remediation, and the lady sitting outside his chamber snapped that page out of my hand and took a snap. So I asked her, what did you do? She told that she was there to help me out in guiding me from where I would be getting best medicines at best rate, best advices, or what like best pathological tests to be done at the least cost and something like that. So I asked him very simply, are you using a smartphone? She told me, yes, I'm using a smartphone. Then I asked her, are you on Twitter? She told, yes, I am on Twitter. Then I told, in 2019, the then CEO, or I don't know who is the CEO right now because in Twitter CEOs are juggling, every time. So who is the right CEO, whether it is Parag Agrawal or Jack Dorsey, might be anybody else. So that time the CEO went to face the joint committee, parliamentary committee or something like that in United States, and told them that we are synced with 1788 platforms. So whatever you put on, we sync with 1788 platforms. And when I download Twitter, I allow it to access to my gallery. So when that lady took a snap of my sensitive personally identifiable information, which states that I take Telz-H as my pressure reducing medicine at 8 o'clock every day. So it is known to the entire world through 1789 platforms. So my dear friend, that is how we on the fly actually share our sensitive personally identifiable information. Rather than that, our very basic vulnerabilities actually bring out the sensitive personally identifiable information. Remember one thing, on 25th of April, MITRE, M-I-T-R-E, the MITRE platform is attack, ATT and CK. They brought out a report which says that nearly 60% of last year's vulnerabilities emanated out of known sources. Very simple. And if you find out the OWASP, ranking of vulnerabilities for the last 10 years, security misconfiguration is there within the top 5. So very simply put, what somebody asked from Mr. Narayanan, if you want to actually ensure data privacy, have secure coding practice through security by design principle imbibed in the development of an app. Very simple. So this is a step before you take remediation. I'm sorry, what happened? Oh. So we actually, when we talk about data, I really do not care. Somebody asked me about my name, it is valueless. I add my mobile number, it has value because it is copied and I started having, offers on loan. Then the PII is when I add my, sensitive informations like Aadhaar number, then my email ID, or rather, voter identity card number, the driving license, through which actually I can easily be identified. So the decision dilemma we must be into. If somebody asks me name, we can give it out on the fly. If somebody asks me about organization or profession, it is obvious to identify myself. If somebody asks me about email, I should have anxiety. What is the necessity? Why is he asking me? If somebody asks me about my email ID, I would think, कल से हमारे पास आना चालू कर देगा, सर कोई जॉब मिल सकता है क्या? This is my CV. सर अभी तो निकल गए हैं, अच्छे हैं, तो हम लोग तो मिलते ही रहते हैं, उनको मिलते रहता था. और आप लोग जो भी हैं, whosoever is there working, you are also getting this type of, once this email is known, it is very pretty easy. I asked one of my friends here how to find out the email ID and the phone number of another friend of mine. He told, no problem, I have a tool that can break open, your privacy of LinkedIn. मैंने बोला बहुत अच्छा है, very easy. So one can break open the privacy that LinkedIn has shown myself into, and it could bring out the mobile number. और हम लोग बात करते करते he found out. He told, your friend's name is Mr. Parno Ghosh. He is into this CISO what? I forgot the company. Then the mobile number and the email ID. And by the time I, carteled or came to the end of my call, he had already this thing, saved his details and sent me across, shared the things. So LinkedIn is such a beautiful place where privacy is taken care of. So before we actually give credit to the person who has broken open LinkedIn or put blame on LinkedIn, we need to understand whether we really do have to share the data with LinkedIn. So the basic question, do we or do we not? What is the necessity? What was the necessity of writing all those details on a register if already I have registered online? What is the necessity? If I am here, I should have been given an RFI demand, and I could be, continuously monitored whether I am listening to, whether I have gone to sleep, or whether I am going out and not attending the seminar. I am here for the lunch only. So the very basic concept is, do we or do we not? The data or the personally identifiable information is required for identification, verification, and these are not two things to be at all worried about. The most worrisome is promotion. My dear friends, when it is free, we are the product. Go back to the, Cyber Yodha, the comic book, the character that we have built, and go to and see what we have written on the body of the Cyber Yodha when he is wearing this shirt. We have the t-shirt, it is written, if it is free, you are the product. So when somebody offers you pura dunya mutti mein, so he is actually selling you off, left, right and center. So there is nothing free other than the love and affection of parents. Absolutely. Even your relationship with spouse is a contractual agreement. And that's why pre-nup agreement is of use right now. So personally identifiable information is completely related to privacy is our fundamental right, and that's why hats off to Puthuswamy judgment of 24th August 2017, which is only 5 years back. So the privacy is our fundamental right is based upon the principle of identity is to identify limits of identification. आपको कितना तक जानना चाहिए और आपको क्यों हम बोले और आपको जानने दे, आपके पास इसकी जरूरत क्या है? Because the very basic point is we should have the authority to erase ourselves, the right of eraser. So you have taken, if Shushovan has taken my details, I should have the rights to ask Shushovan to delete my data from his database. And that organization should have courage to actually tell me, yes, your details have been erased. And somebody asked here, Mr. Sahai, why that privacy bill is not in the doing, that this is the issue. If we are given the authority to erase most of the, companies, those who are not compliant with GDPR, CCPA, and n number of other regulations, where it is the basic principle is to follow your data. If you go into GDPR, the very first principle is follow your data. You can take data out of the continent of Europe, but you have to fulfill the preconditions and rules and regulations of GDPR. And rights of identification, through which I would be given, right to identify myself. I am showing my voter identity card and they are saying, nahi, voter identity card se nahi hoga, aapko Aadhaar card dikhana hai. No, I should have the right to identify myself with the identity that I choose. My dear friend, coming back to the solution, I am not a person who preaches. I am a person of solution. Government of West Bengal, in the Department of Information Technology and Electronics, brought out a guideline that is called West Bengal Public Transactional Data Sharing Guidelines. That guideline talks only about creation of an anonymized data lake. So whatever data, public transactional data you are having, immediately it will be anonymized and put into a lake. That is called open lake policy. Government of India brought out open lake policy, open data lake policy. So open data policy has been revised, and in that revision, in the paper itself, it was clearly mentioned how anonymization is to be done. But prior to that, we had brought out these guidelines. So the basic necessity of today's MSMEs and startups, like what Team Cognito is sitting at the end, Mr. Sanket Sarkar will be talking to you. He has a session. Actually, their organization grew with us. We were with them. In 2018, on 18th of March, Sanket actually came up to us after we had our first national conference and told that, please go on holding such conferences because you give out excellent lunch. That is first what he, and it is free of cost, second. And third, help us create a startup. So I'm so pretty happy to tell you that Team Cognito is doing wonderfully well. They have created a product that is called Xeron. It is a product he will definitely talk about, and it is a game-changing product. We have given them opportunity to actually test their product in the State Data Center of West Bengal, and they have grown out of that, and they have created the product. So, as we have given opportunity to Xeron to test their product on State Data Center, do really MSMEs and startups get that opportunity? Do not. Either they have to buy data from the black market, that means the dark web, or they are working with dated data. So public transactional data is one which is not being shared with the startups and the MSMEs, and they should be shared. But what is stopping them to be shared? Anonymization. Because privacy is a concern. If you take a photograph of a drone flying atop your home, so your privacy is violated. If that data is brought out in the open, you remember still today, those who are old, like me, Mr. Saha and all, Steffi Graf was actually having sun bath in her villa, and there was a low-flying plane which actually took pictures of her and brought out in the tabloid, and she fought for 7.5 years and owned that her privacy was violated. So how would you do that with a drone? We have all parties going around our places, and in those parties right now drones are flown and pictures are taken. Just imagine they are also taking your pictures because your place is just outside that. So privacy is violated when this type of data are released. So public transactional data is not released in the open or shared with MSMEs and startups, but they require that. Why? Toyota has brought down their advertisement over the last 12, 13 years because they say they have a data analytical tool to understand who actually use Toyota and who would be using Toyota as an upgrade out of the CCTV footages that they get. Just imagine when all these CCTVs we allow them to actually go through their own server and come back and be shown to us, there is a total time lag. And those data are actually, replicated and captured and, reposited at different servers. We don't know whether they are being sold. We don't know whether our privacy is getting violated. So that's why every law enforcement agency is making, their own wares and connecting all the CCTVs. In Kolkata police, all those CCTVs are wired. They are not unwired or through Wi-Fi. The same thing is happening across our state, and it is happening across the country itself, I think. So, or there must be some other means. I am not a technology guy to that effect. Definitely there are means to do that. But the basic issue what I am bringing you to, if we can actually dissociate those attributes which can help people, not identify you. That means if we share a public transactional data, but you don't know that that data belongs to me. So that is called anonymized data. My dear friend, many people actually mix anonymization with redacting and masking. No. Redacting is simply putting a black or red color on the top of it, and it is very easy to come back to the original text or document. And masking is changing the name from Sanjay to Bijay. From the entire orientation of the ecosystem or the context, one can very easily understand it is not Bijay, it is Sanjay. So how to dissociate Sanjay but keeping the whole thing ready? How to not identify Sanjay using Telzh as a pressure reducing medicine at 8 o'clock, but understand that this type of demographical pattern or people of this region, they are doing good with this type of medicine. So that is called anonymizer or anonymizer as a stainer. So when all these personally identifiable information, personally identifiable sensitive information or transactional data and analyzed data, they are stained. They go through a stainer and anonymized and create an anonymized data lake. The public transactional data becomes the lifeline for affordable public service development. Organizations like, Xeron, that means Team Cognito, and others, they can thrive because they have the real data on which real and affordable solution is possible. Just 2-3 minutes. Our Cybersecurity Center of Excellence has, entire gamut from end to end, how we actually ensure that public ICT is kept safe and secured. And there are huge amount of activity that we do, and some of them are just here. And the major achievements of the last few years, we are only 5 years old, just like Puthuswamy judgment. So this is some of the details. And last year, for the third consecutive year, we became the best in the country in commemorating the National Cybersecurity Awareness Month and receiving, commendation from the National Cybersecurity Coordinator, Dr. Rajesh Pant. And to conclude, I would say that democracy is our right, and data is our asset, and governance is our mutual responsibility. And the most important slide is coming after this.